Have you enjoyed it all watching Alabama fans? I don't like seeing people suffer. I don't for the most part. But have you enjoyed it all watching Alabama fans kind of flop around a little bit in frustration, particularly their boosters who aren't accustomed to having to pay athletes to come to the University of Alabama? What are your thoughts on where Alabama is right now from a booster perspective and having to play the NIL game, which they didn't have to play as strongly with Nick Saban in place?
I enjoy, and I even enjoyed it for Tennessee, and y'all can hate me for saying this, but I enjoy when any fan base thinks that because of who they are, they're entitled to win and they don't have to do anything to make themselves win. And i.e., Jerry Jones. I think that Tennessee was this way for a long time. They felt they were entitled to 10 wins because they did it in the 90s and that they didn't have to do anything to win 10 games. Alabama has felt that way for Alabama's culture has been that way for a long time. It was that way before Nick Saban, and it's this way after Nick Saban. They don't have a top 20 NIL collective, guys. Let me say that again. They're not even in the top 20. Worse, they're not in the top 9 in the SEC. They may not be in the top 10, but there were 9 SEC schools starting next year that have NIL collectives in the top 20. Alabama's not one of them. So at the best, they'll be 10th in the SEC in NIL collective. Nick Saban retired right after the transfer portal closed. I'm sorry. After he insisted that it wasn't a health issue, I firmly believe that, and I question the timing. I'm thoroughly convinced he retired because he's annoyed with the boosters not cobbling up the NIL money that they need to cobble up to get players. I am thoroughly convinced of that now. He basically probably said, I can get it. The Saban discount helps, but it only goes so far. And I think that's why he stepped down. I think Alabama boosters, and again, Tennessee was this way for a long time, but Alabama boosters sit on a high horse and say, don't you guys know? We're Alabama. You should be grateful to commit to us and play for us at Alabama because we are just amazing. Yeah, that's not going to work. What's happened to Notre Dame? There's a reason Notre Dame doesn't have a national title since 1989 because they have operated like that with actually 1988. They've operated with that culture for 40 years now of we're Notre Dame. You should be thankful to come play for us. That's not how it works in 2024. And Alabama boosters are downright delusional. They may be worse than Jimmy Haslam, who's the worst booster of all time.
Well, and don't forget this too, that these budgets are set going into the year. That's not to say that some huge company in Tuscaloosa or Birmingham couldn't come up with more cash, but a lot of times these marketing budgets are set. And Alabama's, you can look it up if you want to, but their athletic budget is even higher than Tennessee's. And there was a stat that I read last summer that because of Nick Saban, their enrollment was up 30% during his tenure. So he's helped the whole university, and boosters have helped build up the university. But now they're going to be asked to allocate some of those funds to NIL money. I mean, I know this from working in business, running off the hook sports. You know, things don't always happen the second you want them to happen. So, Kalen DeBoer might want an extra $100,000 to spend on a defensive tackle from Arizona, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen tomorrow, especially if it's more like $2 million for the entire class. And some of that money you need to keep guys in place. Because listen, if I'm a borderline guy and I thought Nick Saban was going to turn me into an elite NFL player, sure, I'd take less money. But once he's gone, I mean, there are times you got to think about your family. And we are getting to the point, Caleb, we're talking about life-changing money for more positions than just quarterback. We're talking about some guys are getting so much money that if you invest it right, then you're pretty good for the rest of your life. So I just don't know that Alabama is going to be able to up and do that, and their boosters are going to be able to do it in snap of a finger. Might happen eventually, but I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow.
No, it won't. And let's talk about delusions for a second, because Dave, you covered 2 coaching hires back-to-back at Tennessee. And Mike, I just want to bring this up. I actually give Mike Hamilton credit for the Lane Kiffin hire because he wasn't trying to rest on laurels at Tennessee. He was trying to go for the splash and change the culture at Tennessee immediately. Now he got burned with the bad contracts and it didn't work out. What happens after that? You've told me this. The boosters take over. Doesn't the Derek Dooley hire happen solely because boosters at that time thought this is Tennessee and we can win with any coach no matter what?
Yes.
That's exactly what happened. They thought Derek Dooley would work out because they're Tennessee. So it doesn't matter that Derek Dooley's not that good of a coach. They're Tennessee. They can win anyway.
Now, that being said, I think that Alabama did a great job of handling their coaching search, right?
They did an amazing job.
I mean, they wrapped that thing up in, 72 hours?
Well, Greg Byrne had a lot more leeway than, as you know, Mike Hamilton had in 2010 with Dooley, because Greg Byrne, they like the Nate Oates hire. Whatever you think about what's happened on the basketball program, I believe he hired Nate Oates. They're fans of that. And so he hasn't been, that's where I think, for instance, with Mal Moore, what people don't know is, to Alabama boosters' credit, they borderline took that coaching search away from Mal Moore. They basically told him, don't come home without Nick Saban, didn't they? And Paul Bryant Jr. was like, here's a blank check. Get us Nick Saban. And that's kind of how they got him. But I do think I think delusions of boosters and fans can unravel a program more than anything else, because people and fans think, and it bothers me to no end. I don't like fan bases that do this. And that's why, people are calling me out. It annoyed me when Tennessee fans were doing this. It did. When you think because of what your program is, you're entitled to a certain number of wins every year and you don't have to do anything extra, that's when you fall. The Lady Vols, I'm sorry, their culture right now is causing this. They think they're entitled to national championships. So all they have to do is hire former Lady Vols to continue the Summit way. And it's not working. And I think Alabama boosters are thinking the exact same way right now. They think we're Alabama. We're entitled to titles. We don't have to cobble up NIL money.
Let me ask you this. If you're the SEC, how much do you want Alabama to at least be somewhat similar to what they've been under Saban? How much does that help the SEC? Let's say Kalen DeBoer's there 17 years and he wins 2 or 3 championships, which would be commendable. There would be nothing wrong with that at all. But it's not Saban-like, because the Nate Oates not being suspended makes me think, and I never think this, and I know a lot of conspiracy theorists out there, some probably on our message board do, so maybe I'm naive, but I don't think that for the most part the SEC looks out for one program, but a lot of people think the SEC looks out for Alabama. Not suspending Nate Oates makes me think they look out for Alabama.
Well, no, they look out for teams that could give them. You're talking about this year, yeah. That was embarrassing. They look out for teams that can help them on a national scale and draw ratings. And Alabama in basketball is good right now, and so it does seem like they're looking out for Alabama for that reason. Do you think Greg Sankey made an emotional decision and just feels bad for Alabama fans right now, so he doesn't want to hurt them any harder with the Nate Oates suspension? Because there should be a Nate Oates suspension. And by the way, Nick Saban can deny it all day long, because he's going to deny it. He was lying when he said he wasn't taking a shot at Nate Oates last year with his "there's no wrong place, wrong time." I don't believe him for 1 second. Do you, Dave? When he said that?
No, I think he was clearly taking a shot at Nate Oates. And remind those for that might not remember, he said that right after the
Brandon Miller incident. Nate Oates came out and said Brandon Miller was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, which I'm not saying you suspend Brandon Miller, but you say something better than that. Okay. Nick Saban came out and suspended a player for spring practice a month later and said there's no such thing as wrong place, wrong time. And then he said later, I wasn't taking a shot at Nate Oates. Yes, you were. Yes, you were. You were sending the Alabama athletic department a message. We can't let this happen. And I think Nick Saban, I will say it's kind of interesting you brought it up, and this is another topic for another day, but I think it's going to be a lot easier to get the SEC schedule to 9 games now without Nick Saban as a coach trying to
fair point.
Force it. But so, I think that's going to be easier. But as far as Alabama boosters go, I mean, I talk different from boosters and fans. Okay, college football, Dave, you know this. It's a sport of the boost. There's 2 types of college basketball is a sport for the fans. College basketball, you make the hire for the people that are in the student section cheering and going loud, right? College football decisions are made they're made on the golf course, aren't they? They're made based on the boosters and the coaches on the golf course. And the golf course, I'm sorry, the students in the student section are brighter than the people on the golf course. They're smarter than the people on the golf course, always. And I think Tennessee's boosters weren't that bright back in the day, and Alabama's boosters ain't that bright now. I'm telling you guys this, they want the coach they can golf with, and talk about how great Alabama is and how lucky he is to be there and how lucky players would be to go play at Alabama. But they don't want to cobble up any NIL money to do it because they don't think they have to. And it's going to burn them.